Welcome to the installation instructions for the OekoTube, the electrostatic precipitator for wood and coal fires. This demonstration will show how to install the filter step by step. First, please check health, safety and security rules and regulations for working on the roof and working on chimneys. These requirements are different and specific for every single country. The following tools are necessary for the installation of the OekoTube: a cordless drill and/or a hammer drill for brick or concrete chimneys, a 3.3mm stainless steel drill bit for stainless steel, and/or a 3.3mm concrete drill bit for brick or concrete chimneys, a cordless grinder with cutting and grinding discs, and a battery-powered torch will be required for the adjustment of the electrode. A rivet gun with rivets will be needed. Also needed are plastic anchors with bolts for plaster, brick or concrete chimneys, a 3mm Allen key and a number 17 open-end ring spanner. As can be seen, the tools required for the installation are very limited. All the tools can be carried in a small toolbox or backpack onto the roof. The OekoTube and the required T-piece for installation will be supplied by your local OekoTube supplier. Both items need to be in a suitable place on the roof and, if required, also need to be secured. To begin the OekoTube installation, the chimney cowl on top of the chimney has to be removed. The old rivets need to be drilled out or the old screws removed. The chimney cowl can then be simply removed and placed safely on the roof. After removing the chimney cowl, the T-piece can be slotted into the chimney flue opening. 4 holes need to be drilled with a 3.3mm bit through the chimney flue into the T-piece. Next, attach the T-piece using 4 rivets. The installation shows a T-piece made of copper. The T-piece for some countries will be made of stainless steel. The OekoTube can now be unpacked. First, unscrew the cover. Next, unscrew the electronic unit and remove it from the bracket. For the moment, the electronic unit can be placed back into the packaging box. For the next step, the bracket is required, and the extension pipe if needed. Fit the extension pipe, if needed, onto the short section of the T-piece, then push the bracket over the extension pipe. Fasten the 2 metal angle pieces provided to the bracket using 2 rivets. The angle pieces should be fitted in the lower area of the bracket to achieve high stability for the installation. The angle pieces and bracket have sufficient pre-drilled holes to give the installer flexibility for the fitting. Drill holes through both pipes, then rivet the extension pipe, if used, onto the short section of the T-piece. Next, shorten the extension pipe, if used, to the right length. The bracket can now be vertically lined up with a spirit level. Once the bracket is lined up, the extension pipe can be marked on the outside edge of the bracket. The bracket can now be taken off the extension pipe. Now, cut through the extension pipe at the marked position with the grinder. Next, change from a cutting to a grinding disc. All the burrs, both inside and outside the cut edge, have to be removed and the edge neatly cleaned. Doing this will avoid any possible shortages with the high voltage electrode. It is important to check that all burrs have been completely removed and no sharp edges remain. Afterwards, push the bracket over the extension pipe and use the spirit level to line it up vertically and horizontally. Once the bracket is lined up, all holes need to be drilled through the bracket and extension pipe and fixed with rivets. Check the bracket again for correct direction and drill holes into the chimney for the bracket. Rivet the angle pieces to the chimney. Now, place the electronic unit onto the bracket. Hang the unit on the 2 screws on top of the bracket and slide it into the hook on the bottom of the bracket. Both screws can be fastened. The flexible electrode can now be pushed through the extension pipe into the chimney flue. The electrode needs to be pushed to about the center of the chimney flue, and its position marked 50 to 100 mm after the Allen key screw. The mounting of the electrode now has to be cut off with a grinder at the position marked. The mounting can be tightened onto the insulator with the Allen key. Before the Allen key is properly tightened, the electrode must be properly aligned in the center of the chimney flue. This can be easily done with a measuring tape. The Allen key screw can be properly tightened once the electrode sits exactly in the center of the upper part of the chimney flue. Fine adjustment of the electrode follows using the 4 nuts on the spring table. The nuts must be loosened from the spring table and a torch used to ensure the electrode is centered over the full length within the flue. It is important that these parts of the installation are done very carefully, with time and with patience. These are the most critical steps for flawless operation of the OekoTube. Please double check the position of the electrode. If the electrode is not vertical or in the center of the flue, use the nuts to correct its position. There is a possibility of shortages from the high voltage if the electrode is not exactly centered. Once the electrode is correctly centered, the nuts can be tightened. This is necessary to guarantee that the electrode remains in the same place even after cleaning of the flue by a chimney sweep. Now, as a final safeguard, please check the electrode is centered over the whole length. After aligning the electrode, the remaining piece from the top of the insulator can be cut off. The last burrs need to be removed with a grinding disc. The only thing missing now is the temperature sensor. The sensor must be inserted into the existing holes of the T-piece and riveted to the T-piece wall. The temperature sensor cable needs to be threaded into the opening of the bracket. The remaining cable should be neatly rolled and fixed to the spring table. At the end, there should be a final check. First and most important is that the electrode is still exactly centered on the flue. The temperature sensor must be correctly installed and the cable threaded and rolled up. The Allen screw on top of the insulator must be tight. The screws on the bracket must be tight. The nuts on the spring table must be tight. Well done! The installation of the OekoTube is complete. The cover can now be placed over the OekoTube. The cover should be fitted over the top screws, then pushed over the bottom screws. Do not tighten the screws too firmly. Put the power plug provided into the socket of the electric unit so that an electrician can connect power to the unit at a later stage. Finally, place the chimney cowl on top of the T-piece. The chimney cowl can be riveted to the T-piece afterwards. Thank you. We hope this instruction will help you with the installation of the OekoTube. If you have any questions or queries, please contact your local OekoTube supplier.